Who's on top? Tommy!
And welcome back to episode 45, season 2 of Who's on Top. I'm your host, Ori, and we're so excited today. We've had some amazing games this weekend, the college football playoffs, the wild card weekend. It's been an exciting weekend. We just came back from the Lake Week. We have some pretty fun stories to tell, but let's start off with our wonderful analyst. Let's start off with the Clark Kent man himself, looking absolutely fly today, Jeremy Giles.
At your service.
Ooh, for all of you listeners, he just whipped off those glasses. Speaking of Jacob, there's a Frisbro, Jacob Cassett.
Hey guys.
Oh, he's so happy today. What's going on, Jacob?
Got my little Chinese food snacks.
And giggling as always, we have the bandwagon Bucks fan, Daniel Fox.
Sheki Bavaka Shah.
Ah, very nice, very nice. Appreciate the Hebrew.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Be quiet.
Now, Ellis Gordon.
Hey guys.
So I think we're going to take it a bit different this week. We're going to combine two of our most popular segments and talk about obituaries for teams that got knocked out of the playoffs. So unfortunately, you will not be hearing from my improv or their improv, which I don't really call that improv. It's more outprov. But, I think that it's going to be a great segment, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. We have Jeremy first to talk about obituary for the Seahawks.
Well, now that I have glasses, I feel like I should be more clinical. I'm like the doctor. All right. And you want to know what's broken the Seahawks? You want to know what's broken? So on the offensive side, I think, first of all, I think Russell Wilson just got tired during the season. He seems starting off incredibly hot. And over time, I think you're just really carrying the team. So I think the team's defense was non-existent, which honestly I think just he got tired of seeing. You saw at the end he kind of slowed down, and that continued into the playoffs. And let me be clear, fuck the Rams. I'm still salty the Jets beat them, so I'm not giving any credit to the Rams. I want to be clear. But I think part of it's Russell Wilson slowing down. Part of it also, I think, this idea of kind of letting Russell Wilson open the offense. One thing Pete Carroll has done is that he likes playing a conservative offense like he's a great defense. And you can see in this game, despite the fact that they did not have a great defense, they turned to that, right? They only threw the ball 27 times and they ran it 16, both of which were very unsuccessful, right? There's more runs than completions, which should tell you that there is a problem, both with Russell Wilson and with the game plan as an extent too, playing really conservative, which you don't do against a great defense with even an elite quarterback. And when, in the here's how I'll transition, the defense sucks, right? Over the past few weeks, the defense has gone from a historical low to a decent defense, but not a good defense. It's something that should be clear, right? Like they were getting pressure with Jamal Adams, I think getting this record, I believe it was 9 sacks, the record sacks for a safety, Carlos Dansby. They were going to make the defense better, but this was not an elite unit. This was a fine unit. And the way they played their offense, they needed this to be an elite unit that could shut down the Rams. And clearly it wasn't even what they thought, because they somehow gave up 23 points to Jared Goff, who basically had a broken thumb. So I think with the Seahawks.
What do you mean basically had a broken thumb? He had a broken thumb.
I mean, he had a surgery like 12 days before. I don't know what condition the thumb was in the game. But my point was, this really was a very disappointing showing from the Seahawks against a very inconsistent Rams team that there's really no excuse in my mind for the Seahawks, right? Like, the Rams team, they lost their starting quarterback in the first minutes. Aaron Donald came out in the beginning of the second half. Like, there's no excuses for the Seahawks team.
All right, no excuses, no holdback bars. Jacob, it's on to you and the Titans. What happened here? Explain. Be our little mortician. What happened to the body? Analyze this for me.
Yeah, so I was not expecting the Ravens to beat the Titans. I'm not a huge Ravens fan. I don't like Lamar Jackson. He's not a good quarterback. Don't have to talk about that right now. Jeremy, don't say anything. But yeah, I was super surprised to see mostly the offensive side for the Titans. Derrick Henry, over 2,000 rush yards, right? Over 2,000 rush yards. Only 8 or 9 other players all time have done that. In this game, 2.2 yards per carry. He had 44 yards in the game. That's absolutely atrocious. Could throw Jeremy Giles back there. He could get more yards. And yeah, I think and to be honest, that was their main problem because that has been their offense all year. The rush opens up the play action, and with play action comes the deep ball, and that's how the Titans scored a lot of the points. The deep ball, and then runs from Derrick Henry, and their offense was just stagnant, right? That's a good word, right, Ori? Yeah, their offense is totally stagnant. 4.3 yards per play, about 4 yards down from what they're used to. But I think the Titans, they still have a bright future. Tannehill's still good. Derrick Henry's still good. But what I'm looking for the Titans to do this offseason is Corey Davis is free agent. I think he's going to sign somewhere else. Hope the Giants get him. They need him. So I think they have to either draft or sign in free agency another receiver too to play behind A.J. Brown because Corey Davis was all types of inconsistent in his three years in the league so far. And defensively, we all know they signed Jadeveon Clowney this year. He was a fail. He had no sacks this year. I think he had the injury bug a couple times, but he had no sacks. He was a fail. But this defensive line and defensive edge draft is very, very strong. And with the Titans going out early in the playoffs, it puts them up higher in the draft than I expected them to. So I think they could draft a good defensive line or edge to replace Clowney next season. And obviously they're going to beef up their linebackers who are a little weak. And they should probably sign some other tight ends as well. Obviously we know Jonnu Smith has been pretty good this year, but all their other tight ends, all 4 of them are all free agents and most likely not re-signing. But Titans, no need to worry right now. They're still going to be the dogs of their division next year. And I was as I said earlier, super surprised for this to happen. But there's always next year.
Well, one thing I want to add with the Titans is that this team had 18 sacks this season. They said it on the broadcast. That was the worst by a division winner, I think, ever. And what happens when you have 18 sacks? They're 29th in the league in passing yards allowed. I mean, they were below average in basically anything you want to talk about defensively. I mean, they need to get better at pretty much every defensive position. Malcolm Butler is a good corner. They were without Davion Clowney. I mean, that hurt a little, but this is a defense that needs to be completely overworked. And this is probably, Derrick Henry was the number 1 rated running back. A.J. Brown was the number 2 receiver. Tannehill was number 6 quarterback. I mean, this offense is as good as it gets, but they are dragged down by this terrible defense.
I mean, I don't
I
really
think
know
a few
why they did
problems.
well, I don't know why they really did so bad defensively. Obviously, their corners, it's not Malcolm Butler that's good. It's Adoree Jackson. He's their young star corner. They've got good safeties, and I just don't really know what went wrong. Yes, Lamar Jackson.
I
It's
Good
pressure.
running
They
back.
don't.
the other thing I might say that went wrong, I think, is they used Derrick Henry too much in that final game.
What?
Right? It takes a lot to do.
Not at all.
The last game of the
He
season.
only had 18 carries.
No, listen to me. The last
He's
game.
saying the last
the
week
week
17.
He used them in the not
The-
this final game. The last game of the season. They used him what? Like 36 rushes.
For like 250 yards.
That's
so he
true.
probably tired.
To me, it looks like they just ran him into the ground essentially. So I don't know how much he had left.
I actually.
Derrick
sorry.
Henry, but he's still human.
I kind of actually disagree with that. To be honest, one, they had to use him because
They needed to
I'm
win.
not
need to win.
blaming them for
Also, I mean, what happened was with that Taylor Lewin out, they lost at the point. The Ravens won at the point of attack. Derrick Henry didn't really have any chance to do good. I mean, he was getting hit. If you can't run, if you're getting hit 2 yards after the line, but that's not the Titans' problem. Taylor Lewin will get back. They will be fine. I think we learned 2 things about the Titans. Number 1 is Ryan Tannehill is not Mahomes. He's a very good quarterback. He cannot carry his team to a win. So that's the first thing. So they're going to need a good defense, good offense. Ryan Tannehill can win a Super Bowl, but he can't carry his team to a Super Bowl. That's what we learned. 1. 2 is this defense needs some star rushers to come in and make some moves. Getting their cornerbacks are fine, but getting no pressure is going to do you no good in playoff situations. If they can get a good pass rush and maybe another receiver, they will be more than fine.
All right, with that prognosis, I think we're ready to move on to our next victim. I believe it is Daniel with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, so when I evaluate the Indianapolis Colts, I mean, this is a team that does pretty much everything well. I mean, they're top half in the league in passing yards, rushing yards, points, protecting the quarterback, turnovers, rush defense. I think they just got a tough draw. I mean, playing the Buffalo Bills in the wild card game. That's really tough. And they played a good game. But a couple of things I think they need to improve on. Look, I think they need a number one receiver. I think T.Y. Hilton, he's still a down the field threat, but I don't think he's a number one receiver at this stage of the career. Zach Pascal, Michael Pittman, I mean, they were solid, but they're probably, just complementary pieces. I think, Chris Godwin, Kenny Galladay, Corey Davis. I mean, I think that would be, a really good fit for them this offseason. I think they need to improve in the back end, the secondary. 20th in the league in pass yards. I think they need a third corner, Rock Ya-Sin. Awesome name, not awesome player. Pretty bad cornerback. Safety.
Rock Ya-Sin had a great season this year.
He was rated 104th. I'm on all cornerbacks.
Well,
He's a
Ellis,
rookie.
when
He's a
Fox
rookie.
looks at his analysis, all he goes by is PFF. So
That's not true.
He's I'm not saying I'm not attacking. I'm just saying he was a rookie and he had a pretty good season for a rookie.
I still think they need to improve in the secondary. I mean, they're 20th in the league in passing yards allowed, and they were generating tons of pressure. So I think you got to look at the back end of the secondary. Free safety, Justin
fair.
Blackman. He struggled a bit this year.
Remember, Malik Hooker will be back next year, even though he has had injury problems recently.
So, and one other position I think they need to improve on. Well, do we know if it's the end of the year? Philip Rivers, end of the road for Philip Rivers. I mean, I've been very critical of him. He had a pretty decent season, especially in the second half. Everything started to come together. I mean, in the second half of the season, they really played well. T.Y. Hilton was a true number one receiver. Pittman came on. Taylor broke out. Rivers started playing better. They weren't turning the ball over as much. And there's a lot to like here. There's two All-Pros on the defensive side, and Buckner and Leonard. Chimes and Taylor are arguably the best running back combination in football right now. But I do think they need to go out and get a quarterback. I mean, we've talked a lot about Carson Wentz reuniting with Frank Wright. But there's a lot to like. I mean, this is a great offensive line. They get pressure. They stop the run. Like I said, they need to improve in the secondary, but I think this is a great starting point moving forward if they get a quarterback.
Yeah, I think the Colts live and die by quarterback. The infrastructure's there. Yeah, they might have a semi-weak secondary, but they're missing one thing, and that's a playmaking quarterback or really, really good receivers. But they're not getting really good receivers. But with a really good quarterback season, at least, you're going to get Michael Pittman. I think can be a very good receiver. T.Y. Hilton this is a fine receiving core with a very good quarterback. A very good quarterback. Not that Rivers was bad, but I think a very good quarterback puts them on the top to be a Super Bowl contender.
I think if just Philip Rivers could complete as many passes a game as he has kids, they would just be perfect. I think that's exactly where they'd need to be in. I think they would really take the next step there. Plus, he has to put all of them through college, so good luck with that, Philip.
The situation with the quarterback in Indy, it still goes back to when Andrew Luck retires, I think, in my opinion, right? Because they had built a perfect team around him, a perfect team with a star quarterback ready to go to a Super Bowl. It's just right, they didn't have a contingency plan or a way to easily get a very good quarterback. So
now going into the morgue, we have the Steelers, who started off 11-0 and had an absolute collapse. Did not play, literally played one good half of football after that 11th game against the Colts, one half. They absolutely sucked. And this starts a few things. One, the quarterback. They need to draft a quarterback or get a quarterback. Big Ben, he could play another half year, but they're not winning with Big Ben. They're not winning a Super Bowl with Big Ben again. He can still get them to the playoffs, but they're not winning a Super Bowl. Two, offensive coordinator. The offensive game plan should not be to rely on an old quarterback with just had elbow surgery to throw 50 times every game. They need to have a way better offensive game plan. The thing with the Steelers is this is a very good defense. They do not need their offense to carry them, but they can't have Big Ben throwing so many times a game. Two, on that note, better running back and O-line. See, James Conner's good. O-line's good. They need to improve some. They don't need a drastic improves, but they need to improve, get more pieces in the offseason. And last, the receivers have to. That's another. The receivers have to stop dropping.
Ellis, hold on. Back to the offensive line. They're losing Pouncey, star center.
Yes, but he had a bad season this year, so
and
that
also
might actually help
Big
him.
Ben said he was retiring the same time as Pouncey, so we could look forward to that potentially.
So quarterback's the number one pressing issue. Receivers need to be coached better. They're a talented receiving core, and they just have no excuse for dropping the ball. They don't need Juju. Even without Juju, their receiving core is extremely talented. There is no excuse for them to drop the ball that much. That was ridiculous. And pretty much it comes down, in my opinion, to game plan. They might not get Bud Dupree, but you saw this defense don't necessarily need Bud Dupree. even though they could obviously use him. So this team really needs a quarterback and a better offensive game plan, and they will be Super Bowl contenders again.
I'd like to push back on the quarterback argument. I think you can win with Big Ben, but I think he needs more support. And when I say more support, I don't mean defensive support. You can't win with Big Ben throwing 50 times a game. But I think if you play him more like the Colts tried to play Phillip Rivers, right? You get him like a really good run game. You make him throw a few times. I'm not saying he can't ever be a gunslinger. Like I know Big Ben's not exactly known for being the quarterback that limits his turnovers. But
I mean, Jeremy, as you saw in the early season where the Steelers dominated, they were running the ball. So they have what it takes to run the ball. They just couldn't do it anymore.
well, that's what I'm saying. I think you need clearly for at least the second, not half, but the last third of the season, they could not run the ball. So to me, I still think you need to move off like James Conner and get a much better line. Not against James Conner's talent, but I think you can with Big Ben, but you have to have like a really good run game, which they do now.
I mean, do you want to take a chance and say, look, if we give a 40-year-old Ben Roethlisberger a running game and this amazing defense, could we potentially be contenders? I mean, if you want to take that chance, sure. But he had an offensive line that protected him better than any in football. He has plenty of talented young receivers. I mean, you got to put some blame on the quarterback. I mean, he turns the ball over too much. He wasn't efficient passing. He did have, rack up the yards and touchdowns like he always does, but that's because he threw the ball 50, 60 times a game. I think you need to move on from Big Ben. I mean, best case for them is he retires so they don't have to, cut a franchise legend. I do think they pretty much need to upgrade everywhere on offense. I think they need, Claypool's fine, Deontay Johnson's fine. They weren't rated that high, but they did have nice young seasons. They will develop, but with Juju leaving, I think they need another wide receiver. I do think they need another tight end, or just a tight end in general, and they need a running back. I mean,
Ebron was good.
what?
Eric Ebron was pretty good.
If it drops, they need to stop dropping.
Yeah.
All the receivers are really
all
good.
the
They just
receivers
No,
need
I
to
think
drop.
they need. I think Eric
You just
Ebron
gotta
is
stop.
best.
You just gotta stop doing.
And Ebron, Juju, Deontay Johnson, and a Chase Claypool core can be very good if they just learned how to
Yeah,
catch
Yeah, but
the ball.
Juju's gotta
You
stop
guys-
TikTok dancing.
So
You
I
guys-
think what's good with the Steelers is that you have this foundation of a great defense: Cameron Hayward, T.J. Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, and now it's just about adding offensive pieces. But I do think they need to completely remake and reimagine this offense.
I agree with reimagine. I just think Big Ben, he can't carry a team. And I'm not saying he isn't turnover prone and there aren't flaws. If you look at the quality of some quarterbacks that made to the Super Bowl, right? I'm thinking like, look at Jared Goff from last year. Do you think that Big Ben next year is going to be worse than Jared Goff from last year? I'm just saying, like, if they have like that elite defense, which I think they're capable of, and can get a very good running back either through the draft, which I think is much more possible than getting a very good receiver this year, I think that they could really do it. I don't know. I think it's worth going for one more year with Big Ben rather than trying to switch this year.
One last thing I want to say. Look, I feel like, you got to put some blame on Mike Tomlin. And I've said this for years. I think his teams are undisciplined. I think especially when he would have to go up against the Patriots, he was just completely coached. And, he's built a good defense, but I think he inherited a great defense from Bill Cowher. And I think it collapsed within 5 years. And I think he's had all this. He was gifted all these. Well, he wasn't gifted, but he does know how to draft receivers. But he didn't win with Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown in their prime. Look, I respect Mike Tomlin, but I think his teams are traditionally undisciplined. This is a team that was near the top, I think at the top in penalties. And I think there has to be some blame on Mike Tomlin here.
So I think I'm going to agree with one of your points and disagree with the other. I'm going to agree that there should be blame with Mike Tomlin. I think you're right. His teams, while good, and I know he has won a Super Bowl, at least as of recent history, have not had much success in the postseason, and he has been outclassed by coaches, right? Such as he almost always seems to outclassed by Brady. Like, I don't think he's in the same class as Andy Reid. With that said, he's still a very good coach. He's still almost always able to lead his team to the playoffs or winning divisions or coming close to winning divisions. And I think the claim that his teams are undisciplined is not really fair. Really, if you look at the whole Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell situation, the fact that he was able to keep that under the ropes and disciplined is, for as long as it was, is really something that's very important.
Actually, I
Not
wanted to
that
say
they-
I was.
not
Oh, sorry.
that
My bad.
not crazy people and there's not problems, but the fact that he was able to have that locker room and keep it as much under the ropes as it can be.
Yeah, I actually think no. I actually think that's the only fair criticism Mike Tomlin is he doesn't know how to discipline his star players. They get away with way too much in Steel City, and you see all these players that turn corrosive, and Juju's like there's a long line of corrosive players under Mike Tomlin. I think teams need way more discipline. The Pouncey twins, there's so many bad Steelers players, but I think that's fair. That's a fair criticism of Tomlin. I was going to say Fox of Tomlin. All right, let's move on to the football team.
We know you
Alright.
love criticizing me.
Well, Daniel Fox will be a great NFL coach if he ever got the chance.
To move on to WFT, which is the Washington football team, which I will be taking away. I will be putting on my little cute analyst hat, like Ellis has his little nerd goggles on. To quote Alex Glynn, he looks like a nerdlet, and lovely. So let's move on. So I wrote down some points. I don't know how you guys do this, but let me try. Excuse me. So Heineke actually looked fantastic for just coming in. I thought he did an amazing job. He has this outright chemistry with Logan Thomas, which you can already see developed. I don't know. They're probably throwing around as backup quarterbacks together in bench camp. I thought that was pretty cute, though, that they can both really get it going. He's absolutely fearless. He has absolutely nothing to lose, which I thought was fantastic, especially in the pocket. He has so much poise, so much confidence. He's not afraid to get hit, which, I think some quarterbacks today are really tentative of the hit. He's not. He embraced that. He has a tremendous amount of athleticism as well, and I think they really have to consider moving forward to him with the star quarterback of the future. I mean, you guys saw he escaped 3 different sacks, ran for that touchdown. The one interception he threw came off a deflection, but that fearlessness, I don't know if it comes from a backup mentality. He's like, well, they just put me in, coach. I'm just going to do whatever I want, and we're going to see how it ends up. Or it might be from a more intrinsic, actually place of confidence, which I really hope it is, because it was so much fun watching him play. I think it was a vintage Brady game. I mean, all credit to the Michigan product. No matter how you play like that, there's not much you can do when you're facing Brady in his prime. Heineke has a hell of an arm, though, and I think that Washington defense just really let them down. Chase Young really didn't get things going. He was blocked the whole game. So all credit, tip my hat to the Bucs offensive line. They were especially good on the goal line, did a great stand there. It's kind of weird because Heineke completed almost every pass he threw on third down. It might not have been a conversion, but he completed almost every single pass on third down, which I thought was pretty wild. Brady had all day to throw. Again, credit to the offensive line. They really missed Chase Young that little part of the second half, but I thought they did really well. So how do we move forward from here? I think Ron Rivera's really put together a crafty team like he usually does, Riverboat Ron. And Heineke's really made a name for himself as to be the starter next year, considering he's older. The only one big problem in Washington future is that Doug Peterson was fired, so he can't throw the game next year, and the Giants might win the division. So if I had to put one blemish on Washington's season is that Doug Peterson was fired, and they can't make the playoffs next year. How did I do as an analyst? I think I did pretty well.
Pretty good
You're
job.
good up until
9
that
out of
last
10.
point.
Yeah,
You're
it
good
was,
until that last
10
point.
out of 10. And there
Last
was-
point, totally valid.
I think we sleep on this Washington defense. I mean, they were top 5 in the league in most
I
categories.
don't think anyone's really sleeping on them.
Yeah, I
man.
think
But we don't refer to them as people refer to them as an elite defense?
I think they're.
Defensive
I
line.
think they're
they're
almost
very
there.
good defense. I don't
It's
know.
'cause I
And
think
also, this is a young. You have
their
Chase
corners
Young
and safeties are not that great, but
Yeah,
They're
their
good.
secondary is not terrific.
Their
but they
defensive
have
line is
Montez-
one of the best in the league.
Yeah, you have Montez Sweat and Chase Young, Pat rushing the passer.
I mean, all their defensive linemen are first-round draft picks the last 4 years.
Yeah.
One thing
Offensively, I do think there's, we'll see. I mean,
There's
Heineke really
promise.
impressed me.
A lot of
The most-
promise offensively.
Yeah.
McLaurin, Gibson.
A lot of promise. The one thing I want to push back on a bit with Heineke. First of all, an amazing story, and I really kind of hope he works because that's I actually don't know because I still love Alex Smith, so it's hard to read against one or the other. But it's hard to say a lot from this game because you see a lot of quarterbacks have success in the beginning, especially probably an experienced quarterback like Henneke that's been around the game a while, simply because people don't have much tape on him, right? They don't know his tendencies the way you do of a quarterback who's had a full season of starting under his belt, right? Where you can kind of look, okay, here's what he does. So that often makes quarterbacks like what you saw Jalen Hurts in his first game, right? When he beat the Saints just kind of weren't really sure what to do against him. No, I'm not saying he can't be really good. He looked really, really great, and I don't want to take anything away from him. I'm just saying this one good game doesn't necessarily mean he should be the starter next season or anything like that. I think that's a bit of an overreaction. Although it was a very good game. I don't want to take that away from him.
Jeremy, I agree with you, and I also want to bring up the point. I mean, this is Bruce Arians. I mean, I don't think he's watched tape on anyone all year. But I mean, Henneke was impressive. I mean, the toughness, the throws on the run, the mobility around the pocket. But yeah, there's a reason that, he was in the AAF. I mean, you got to see more from him. I definitely think they bring back Alex Smith. He's a starter next year.
Well,
He's going to be the starter next
And if
year.
I might add with Henneke too, I remember 2 weeks ago, I forgot the team I was against, but what team were they playing when they when they cut, what's his name?
Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, what team was that after?
Panthers, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Panthers.
I remember after the Panthers game, leading into that, they kept Dwayne Haskins because they're like, okay, there's no way we can win a game with Henneke. So there's no way you can go from not having a chance to win a game with Henneke. So you keep someone that's clearly crappy for the team morale, like Dwayne Haskins, to in 2 weeks having him suddenly be the starter.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that they're not going to bring in a veteran quarterback, someone, like Alex Smith. I think the question is, does this show you enough where you don't want to spend a first or second round draft pick on a quarterback? And I can't say it doesn't. I think if there's a quarterback there that they like, I think they still got to take him. And, Henneke was great, but I think in all likelihood, he's going to go into this next season as the third string.
Thank you for listening to episode 45 of the podcast. If you want to start a podcast with your friends, with family,
Corporate
whatever,
sellout.
corporate sellout. If you want to get your ideas out to the world, then use our link in the description and start a podcast with Buzzsprout today. You can get a $25 Amazon gift card if you do. I know. Whoa, Amazon. Anyway, I knew you guys just did that. Oh, I did that just for you guys.
Of course you did.
Subscribe. Follow our Instagram at What.Podcast and on Twitter at What.Podcast. That's with a capital WOT.PODCAST. Twitter is for Dan's Takes. Well, supposedly Dan's Takes. Been dormant for 3 weeks or 4, maybe. And Instagram, we have some nice face, what do you call them? Photoshops. And you always know when our next episode is out. Also follow and subscribe and like and do all that good stuff. Put notification bells on to our YouTube at Who's on Top. That's where we post our highlights and you can see our faces, especially sexy Jeremy with sexy Clark Kent Jeremy. Whoa, the blue light glasses. Listen to our podcast at Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, Deezer. I think that's it. Or pretty much wherever you get your podcast, any mainstream platforms, unless you're using some Malaysian background platform site, then don't do that. I think that is it for this episode. As always, have a good week. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hope you enjoyed the episode and goodbye.